Alright, so we are live, and I'm going to clean up my screen. I use a sliding picture-in-picture thing on the Twitch. You can't see it if you're watching here in the Discord, so if you want to see that, turn on Twitch and just mute it so you don't get echoes coming through. That's for you. My guest right now is Captain Pennyworth, and I didn't have another topic yet, so we are going to take a look at a late game Nazca situation, which I saved some of my turns, but not all of them. I subbed into this game on about turn 40, and it starts off fairly quiet, not a heck of a lot going on. So you can see that my situation, you can see that basically I've got sort of a kind of strung out territory. I've got Scalaria is reasonable. I talked to him a lot. We made an alliance. Partly, normally I would be iffy on an alliance with Scalaria, but I had good temples and good Dominion push, so he wasn't wrecking my own territory. At this early stage, I really didn't have any success with negotiations, but I did have a non-aggression pact here with the Gartha. So this is sort of where I took over. And typical of Nazca, now we'll take a look. The Bless is a rainbow, so that's fairly classic. All of this is pretty solid for an option for Nazca. Good resistances, those are great. A little less on the cold, that makes good sense, partly because you'll be using Sabayas. The defense skill, I believe, is boosted by a throne. So I do have one or two thrones. This one here. Yeah, so there's an extra 3 defense skill, so that's partly where that comes from. You can see I've got a little token force in the water and decent numbers of forts. And oddly enough, I've got this funky glowing fisher, so I'm getting a few devils. Sitting at home, where's my... I'm going to find the pretender. There he is. It's the Frost Father. He's got a pile of globals up. I've got 3 of the globals, and they're all on the same guy, which is not my favorite thing. Because if anything goes wrong, you're going to lose a lot of power. And this is a Dominions Enhanced game, so there's some interesting globals. This one turned out to be a really good global. I just had money and gems just pouring at me all game long. So the little tiny bit of unrest and population kill I didn't notice at all. It was pretty minimal. And the other new global that I'd not seen before is this one. This is partly why Scalaria was not a problem, because I just had this huge extra Dominion push. So so that's kind of the starting point here. Got any off the top sort of questions there, Captain Pennyworth?
No, I'm just at the moment.
All right, so we'll just kind of do an overview. So at this point in time, I've taken over. You can see, classically, I'm summoning an awful lot of Sabayas. For people who may or may not know Nazca, the Sabayas are an undead. They're very excellent. They're sacred. They fly in storms. Resistance is ethereal. Their only real weakness is no protection, but this is well into the game where I've got quite a good selection of protection spells available. So I've got Iron Warriors, Marble Warriors, I think. I'm working on Marble Warriors. And then eventually, of course, I'll go for Army of Gold and Army of Lead. So that's pretty classic.
But a more general question.
Mm-hmm.
Nazca, I know, are rated really high.
Yes.
Very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
What are their weaknesses, though?
If somebody does a huge bless, one weakness is lack of money. they suck money because Royal Malquis are 850. But on the other hand, but you really do want to have some of these Incas for flying commanders because they're very good commanders and they fly, obviously. The Magic Pass are, roughly the same. And you want a few of these Koyas for flying undead commanders because the Royal Malquis that are mummies. And then if you lose a Koya or an Inca, it kills one or the other, they form a couple, and they form a Royal Malquis. So you need gold. So I would say one weakness of Nazca is if you choose a really strong bless, later on you're going to be pretty starved for gold. You've got other options, but that's maybe a weakness. This is the second time I've played Nazca. Both times I've played with a very moderate bless, a good bless, but moderate. So the scales are decent. These are decent scales. Especially Magic 3. And then Turmoil Luck. I like playing Turmoil Luck. So, I don't know. The problem is most nations have something. Okay, Captain Pennyworth is stepping away for a bit. But it's a little hard to pick like an obvious weakness of Nazca. One of the weaknesses, though, is perhaps highlighted here by the fact that the original player just had to step away because he found it overwhelming. Nazca has a lot of things in its toolbox. You have sacred reanimation. You have plain reanimation. You have a kind of reincarnation that you mummify. So then you end up with a mix of various kinds of walking priests and walking magi and walking commanders. You also have plain, should be here, there, oh no, he's building a fort. You also have slave capturing. So these guys here, the plain Malki, can capture these generic slaves, which are fairly crappy Hatun Runa, but they function quite well. So that's a lot of different tools. You've got capital only sacreds, the Condor Warriors. They're very solid. One of the best things is Stormfly. And you have lots of air magic. You've got communions. So you got communions, you got reanimation. You've got slaves. You've got free patrollers. You've got very broad magic pass. So you can easily site search for a very broad selection of magic. You can forge most anything in the game. Eventually you can diversify into nature because you've got these little guys. You might have to work a bit. And you've got these little guys, so that gives you a little bit of nature to kind of get a start. The Pacos, the two different kinds of Pacos. In Dominions Enhanced as well, there's extra spells to give an additional amount of additional ways to diversify into the pass you don't have. But you can see that right off the top, just with your ordinary Royal Malquis, you've got 5 basic pass. So you don't have much for water and or nature. You don't have blood, but blood is not a path that a nation normally needs to try to get. And you can see here that the original player summoned a Naiad to diversify into water. Used the Pretender to do it. This is a Rainbow Pretender. So a Rainbow Pretender, I don't know, makes a lot of sense to me for Nazca. Going on from there. At this point in time in the game, there really wasn't anything very significant for diplomacy happening. I was talking to Agartha, I was talking to Scalaria. Didn't have a lot of success talking to Ulm. So, and this is turn 48. Now, I did not archive a lot of turns, so I'll jump back out and have a bit of a look at turn 49, and then I just kind of stopped archiving until things got pretty exciting around turn 72. It was just I was showing off some of this stuff to another person on the Discord, and he mentioned that, hey, you know, you got some real action going. You can see in the messages I'm filling in certain really critical magic. The target here for Alteration 7 is to go for Fog Warriors, because with either a booster item or extra gems or a bit of communion, it's very easy for me to use Fog Warriors. And then I was going to go up Conjuration for particularly various kinds of the elemental royalty and things like that. And I did mention this is a Dominion Enhanced game, so that has some effect on it. And I am filling out the site searching. The purpose for grabbing Banes here is I've got some reanimation going on with the Malky Priestess. So she's busy summoning Long Dead. And Mound Kings are a good way to move Long Dead, but I prefer, especially in Dominions Enhanced, if you look, Banes are 5 gems, and Mound Kings are 3 gems. Raise King, where is he here? Raise King, Revive King, 3 gems. So for the extra 2 gems, I'd rather the tougher commander, who then can thug a little bit if you need to. So that's the purpose of that. Go back to messages. But you can see I did find, or my predecessor found some, where are they here? Here they are. Some Hydromancers. So those are very useful for getting the water searching. And there was some of the searchings really well done and some is not quite done. So I'm moving around. You can see I'm moving around a Malky. This one's got a nice extra random. Doing some manual searching. It's very, very efficient. And I'm looking to take this throne. You can see I deliberately suicided a couple of these guys. That's because they mummify and they become the basic commanders who can create slaves. So Nazca definitely has a lot of different tools, and I think it's a complex nation to play well. You could play it kind of simply and stick with a couple of options, but it definitely gets to be a very involved nation. Also, we've got some annoying events going on. I believe those are Throne of Beast problems, so I have to run around and kind of chase down various dire wolves. This was a deliberate attempt to suicide, creating with these guys some reanimators, with the Hurtin Priest as well, some reanimators, and with the Apuscape, yeah, that should be how you say it, with the Apuscape being able to create slaves. And all these events are due, you can take a look at them, see, found some gold, found some gems. These are all due to that one global, this one. So that creates a lot of events. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, or I am currently broadcasting from the Dominion's Nexus and in the voice channel, so it's open for guests if you want to drop by. Along with those other activities, so there's the ones that died, they've become mummies. Whoops, and there was a glitch. I let my Naiad die. That was a mistake on my part. Actually, I think part of it was I wasn't sure where the heck she came from and where to get her home to. You can see gold income, lots in the treasury. Recruitment is fairly straightforward. Mostly, I should also mention, you can see I've got basically no scouting. So one of my first steps in this whole game was to buy a heck of a lot of inexpensive flying scouts and send scouts everywhere. And I had enough forts that I was willing to spend fort time. You could also see that my predecessor had built a significant number of magic boosting items. He'd done lightless lanterns, owl quails, and skull mentors. So I wasn't particularly concerned about research, and I definitely felt that since everything was at peace, I could take the time to build scouts. So there's not a heck of a lot else here to review in turn number 49. I think we'll move on to having a look at the later turns I archived when things got exciting. And we start to see some fairly clear late game play. Alrighty. So I see he claimed a throne. I am summoning these boitatas. We'll talk about them in a minute. And she who shall not be named for Fascia put up a global. Not really sure which one. I've still got my basic 3 globals. I did debate some options to do some more globals. Currently, I did not archive the turns showing the destruction of Ulm. So Ulm is now out of the game. And that had a lot to do with, Scalari and I both kind of said, well, we kind of were noticing that in all of our space, there was, I think, 4 thrones. And in the game, you needed 14 points to win. So somehow we had to find a way to get at one of us to even have a chance to win, had to find more thrones. So I've got 2, Agartha has 1, Scalaria has 1. So that's 4 thrones kind of in the whole area of the 3 of us that were cooperative. And the action in the game seemed to be all happening down in the far southwest or the far south. We weren't entirely sure. You can also see that the pretenders, we've got 4 have gone AI, a whole bunch are already defeated. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us still left, and that was it. Still playing. So I felt that at some point I had to make some sort of a move. So I had started sort of pushing towards Fascia with the intention of trying to invade his land here, set up a beachhead. But I had just sort of finished finalizing the Ulm issues. You can see I've got a number of elemental royalty. The majority of that elemental royalty came out simply because I enslaved them using enslaved mind from Ulm. I don't believe I summoned any of these. So I've got Air Queen or 2. I did go summon Water Queens. So I've got 2 Water Queens, 1 Air Queen, 1 Earth Queen, King, 1 Fire King. I should have here somewhere or other the King of Magma. There's Bedosian, the Earth Blood King. And the King of Magma should be around here somewhere. It's been a while since I played this turn. Have a quick look. How do we find him? Fire. Fire with death. Fire with death. Where is that guy? Maybe I summon him coming up here. That's entirely possible. So I'm not seeing him yet. So one of the things I'm doing, as you can see, I'm moving forward a big bunch. A little bit of thugging with the Water Queens. And a Mound King to help out with death magic. Lots of Long Dead. And some uses of water elementals. Got a little bit of issues with disease. Now, Burden of Time, I think, is up. Yeah. So one of the things we were all trying to do is deal with this burden of time, but I was choosing not to make a great deal of effort to get rid of it. People had tried to negotiate to do a dispel of it, but I kind of mentioned to them, I thought, given that I believe Irmer has already gone AI. No, not yet. No, that's Fascia. Where's Irmer? Scleria. Irmer. Yeah, he hadn't gone AI yet, but he goes AI very soon. And once he went AI, I said, well, why don't we just try to kill the caster? That's easier. So there's not a lot of action. The other thing that's happening here is I had negotiated with Agartha, who at this point in the game had decided that he didn't want to start any wars, he didn't want to do any fights, he was kind of overwhelmed and life had gotten busy, but he didn't want to go AI or find a substitute. So he agreed to allow me to borrow some of his land to prepare an attack on Man. So you can see that I'm shoving scouts deep into Man's land, and I'm sending a quite advanced attacking force, everything flying. And all of that is to build a location where I can put up a lab, and then I can gateway. I did have some struggle with, I was starting to have serious problems with food during this session, so that was a challenge. But those things happen. So not a lot to see for the fighting. You can see I'm sitting on a lot of gems, just sort of hanging on to them. Done a lot of diversification. I pretty much have most anything I might want. Doing some final cleanup, building some temples. You can see that my Dominion strength is solid. I pushed heavily into Scaleria, so I don't need to worry about his nasty Dominion. It's not causing me any grief. And I can somewhat just take my time and prepare. There's not a whole heck of a lot else to show here. And barring any questions related to it, we'll move on. You can see though that I've just conquered Ulm. So I'll move on to the next turn, turn 72. Go to 73. And there we are. So I am paying a bit for the burden of time, but nobody died. And the other thing is some of the ones, well, I did lose a Hydromancer here. Ind has been destroyed. So Agartha finished off Ind. And my attack here, that's pretty much insignificant. I had to kill some province defense. And I'm continuing to move along. That's funny. Arcos Valley, to the best of my understanding, is AI. Right? Yes. So, Arcos Valley, wherever the heck they are. So I'm continuing my push. Now this map has a lot of terrain challenges. Rivers, mountain passes, and even flying. I had to kind of jump around to get where I wanted to go. So you can see I'm bringing more reinforcements up. There's the King of Fire. I've still got a significant force prepared to sort of raid or harass. So all I'm sending here is just the one amphibious water queen with some troops. So she'll go kind of grab this little wasteland and see what we can do from there. I'm preparing here a lab and should be building a fort. Maybe not yet. I do eventually build a fort here. And all of that's in anticipation of how I'm going to go over here and put pressure on Fascia. And Scaleria also agreed to attack Fascia, so he's preparing an attack to take water from Fascia. All of which is coming together. And down in this area, as far as what's happening with various other things, I'm forging a broad selection of useful goodies. And you see here that I had built quite a lot of things to boost range. One of the reasons is prior to negotiating this travel arrangement through Agartha, I was planning to astral travel onto Man. And so I knew that I was going to need things with extra range, because at the closest I could get was from this province to that province at 6, just out of astral travel range. But happily, by negotiating with Agartha, I didn't have to do astral travel. And you can see, pretty serious army. Now, Man, I'm sure, has some big armies somewhere. I haven't found them yet, but he is in the process of conquering Ermor. The burden of time is still up, so he hasn't found the caster of Ermor, but we'll see if Ermor has gone AI yet. Not yet. Oh, yes. Ermor has gone AI. So that burden of time is going to disappear soon. And even so, being a significantly undead nation, I'm not particularly concerned about burden of time. I didn't feel it was worth me spending pearls when my anticipation was using up my pearls on astral travel and on gateway. If we look around some more, so there's no battles to really look at. Well, that's interesting. He got hurt a little harder than I think he intended. So that was the end of Naba. Must have been assaulting a fort. Yeah, so here he is. So he's got 2 golems, fully geared. Dancing Trident. Our golems just have such terrible statistics. Classic shield, boots of quickness. Okay, so that's pretty classic stuff. What about his other golem? So this one he chose, instead of the dancing shield, to get some more shock resistance. Otherwise the same setup. What has he got here on this Boread? I believe these Boreads are a summon from Dominions Enhanced. Why is it dangerous to have a low-level Astromage compared to a high-level Astromage? I would argue it's not. Most of that's got to do with people are afraid of the spell Magic Duel. So let's just have a quick look. If we go to research, go to evocation. So they're afraid of this spell. This spell allows any astral mage to potentially kill any other astral mage, and it's got a funny mechanic that's kind of different to all the other mechanics in the game. Instead of rolling 2d6 open-ended, it's a 1d6 roll, and only the base astral level counts. So a lot of people say, well, you don't want to send out expensive or high value magi with astral against a nation with lots of little astral ones, and that's correct. But I argue that in most cases, almost all cases, you have the choice of where you're going to send your expensive astral mage. And since we were looking at that battle, let's go back to that. This battle here, golems are immune to Magic Duel because they're mindless. So it doesn't matter with a golem. And the reason here he put a Starshine Skullcap, that's why a lot of people don't want to give their pretender god 1 or 2 points of astral. That's exactly why. However, I've not lost, I don't believe I've lost an astral pretender in 10 or more years, because you do have the choice of where you send it. The other discussion is it's more difficult for things like certain very expensive astral magi. Of course, the other thing about Magic Duel is if you bring 20 various astral magi to a fight and he brings 20, it's random which ones get dueled. So there's that as well. And but that's the primary reason people talk about not, in my opinion, it's a risk management issue. if you're going to fight a nation with a lot of astral magi, then be careful how you use your astral magi. But you also can magic duel back, so well, that's fine. I'm just doing questions and answers. That's the topic of the day. And I did have a voice guest, but my voice guest had to take a pause, so he's not here right now. And yeah, so anyways, sorry, I had a couple other things come at me through various text channels. Looks like I might have a new guest. Hello, Skipper. And Naira, I see you're here but on mute. That's fine. So if you've got other questions, feel free to ask them, because I'm just doing questions and answers, so we can divert to whatever topic sort of comes up. But I did want to have a look at this battle just to see something didn't really go right for Agartha, because that's pretty small defense. Just give me a second. I got to make sure that the volumes aren't out of control. Sometimes the Dominion's volume is a little on the high side for the battle sounds, and I prefer it doesn't get obnoxious. Okay, so he's throwing up some body ethereal. He's doing some earth powers. Perfectly sensible. Another. Oh, he's got 4 golems. Wow, that's a lot of golems. But they don't fly, so they're not going to be able to. They're ethereal though, so they can go through the walls. He's got a lot of vitriols, the green lions. The volume of the battle's fine. Yeah, I just checked it and it doesn't seem to be too obnoxious. As long as we don't have elephants or mind blasting screaming at us. It's funny, they haven't done anything with the sound effects for this game in, well, at least the 13 years I've played it. So the acid spits of the green lions aren't really hitting. That's too bad. Those can tear things to shreds. The golems are going to walk through the walls because they're ethereal. So that's a good... Oh, okay, they're going to fight the guys on the wall. The guys on the wall are almost dead. Some magma bolts, so he's losing a lot of his plain infantry. Oh, he ran them into the fight with rusty equipment. That doesn't help. That doesn't help much at all. Whoa! That golem got hit by his own green lions. So a bad case of friendly fire. Jeez, that hurt. Ouch. And that golem, no, there he is. I thought he died. So here comes the golem. So something here, and that Boread. So what's happening to that Boread? He got hit by falling fires. He got hit by magma bolts. Does he not? He's got, 15 fire resist. Okay. He doesn't have any regeneration though. Yes, he does. He's got regeneration, fire resist, magic resist. His armor's broken. Well, that's not so great. And his shield is broken. That's also not so great. So he's just getting kind of chip damage at the moment. Ooh. What hit him there? You get rusty and broken armor either because you were in the water. No, it's a normal part of the game. Any armor made of iron can rust in the water, and also there's a couple of spells that destroy it, rust spells. And see, if you look here at the green lions, their breath is vitriol breath, so it corrodes armor. So probably they got their rusty armor from corrosion, from being hit by friendly fire from the green lions. That's a... Can you fix it? Yeah, you sit in a lab for a little while and it uses the resources of that lab, of that province, to fix armors at the same cost as it costs to buy them. To get that to work effectively, you need to spread out all the rusty stuff and move it to multiple labs. And but that's how you fix it. And see, once it's rusty, then it can be broken if it gets a hard hit. So that's a good question, and it's not that common. I sure as heck don't very often see somebody sending out very expensive super combatants or thugs with broken armor or rusty armor. That's kind of painful. Like that looks. Let's look at this guy's protection. We've still got a moderate amount. Yeah, destroying armor is a reasonable tactic. It's not as good as it used to be. There's been some changes to the mechanics. So there's destruction spell. Hey, somebody's come back. Somebody's talking. Rovsi, how are you?
Yes, it's me, Roxy.
Right on. You got any comments on
So,
using
I did want to say
breaking armor?
is, as I understand it, it used to be it actually removed the armor.
Yes.
Now the maximum that it can do, I believe, is negative 50% and that's at like second or third stage of being damaged.
Okay. The other thing is the damage calculation is changed. If I remember correct, the destruction spells literally destroyed it in one hit. Now it's an amount of reduction based on the size of the damage. You can look up the mathematics of that. More volume on Rovsi? We can. Do you have any comments, Rovsi, about using destruction spells now? Have you used them frequently?
No, I have not, and I can't think of any good applications for it in any of my current games.
Yeah.
Maybe against burning ones or something, but I have a different strategy against them. So.
Well, one of the classics is Rust Mist, and if we pull over the mod inspector.
Well, one of the things you can do is you can use acid.
Yes.
Which is just a very good damage source by itself.
Well, I think that's what happened in this game. So there's the spell Rust Mist, but you need air and water. I think what happened in this game is he got friendly fire from the Green Lions. Because obviously this Boread guy here, he's going to get killed. One of the reasons I came to watch this fight, you weren't here yet, was just because Agartha lost a couple of super combatants, and I was trying to understand why when this was an almost empty fort.
Well, he's got some pretty strong mages in there too.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. These guys. Oh, they're also geared up. Well, that'll be a significant factor.
Yeah.
That guy is, at least.
Does he have some sort of eye? No, it's in... What's that blue in the...
Eye of Aiming.
Eye of Aiming? That's very odd to see.
Well, maybe he put it on when he was casting spells, and...
Yeah,
because this
he's
guy's...
a prophet. Okay.
Yeah, and he's been whacked a bit. So he might have been doing something else for a while. That might be why he put the Eye of Aiming on.
He's got pretty good buffs on that guy.
Yeah. But this player had gone AI, and he tried his best, but I think he was a sub, and I think by the time he took over, it was a bit of a hopeless. Yeah, so there's Pillar of Fire, but he missed.
Yeah. Did he miss?
No, he didn't. Let's look at the values here. Well, it only did 2 points of damage. So... Oh, that's
very
pretty...
Lucky to
Yeah, that was a really bad damage roll. He rolled a 5 to a 14, so... And a 14, that's a really good roll. Because that's a...
At least 2.
He at least rolled 1-6, so...
Yes.
But it's probably Pillars of Fire that are going to kill him. So I had heard that the AI doesn't like to target things like Pillars of Fire against things with decent resistance, but here we're seeing an example where it is.
It might be because of proximity to an extent.
Maybe. Because I've heard complaints that even though Frozen Heart will penetrate pretty darn high...
I've seen it with lightning spells as well.
Oh, boom.
Those have range. Oh, I think he might have hit himself with his own...
Yeah, that was a lucky hit.
Well, he has the paths for it, doesn't he?
No, that guy didn't, but one of the other ones did.
Yes, he
Yeah,
probably just killed his own.
something anyways.
Somebody hit him with a
Because the
good
Gartha normally can't throw
He might
those.
have somebody with
Oh, maybe
Nazca.
this guy.
Not in middle age, I don't think.
No, no, I don't think. I think that had to be in Naba smacking himself with his own meteor.
Targeting the adjacent
Yeah.
Boread and missing because it's a very low position.
Oh, what's happening to this guy? He's taking some fatigue. Yeah. Ooh. Look at the amount of friendly fire. Yeah, the green lions are just shredding the golems. So that did not work well. Green lions and golems.
Dude, I'm just dropping in here to let you know that your browser isn't going to be game, so that's it.
Thank you. There we go. We're back to it. Oh, a whole bunch of questions. All right, we'll back up a little bit in the battle. Yeah, you're going to have a riot. Yeah, you're going to have a riot in the text chat. Life's rough. Alrighty, so questions. Transition, yes, Nazca to early game, from early game to mid game. Well, this isn't a great example in this game because I took over about turn 40. And if you go back and watch later on, yeah, Rovsi's got a good point. There's nothing wrong with condors. Condors are better probably in the early game. It depends on your bless. In this game, I specifically did not summon many condors. So let's just finish up sort of seeing. We'll get back to your question, Alderain. I'd just like to finish up seeing what went wrong. It looks to me, though, that the primary thing that went wrong here is friendly fire from the green lions. Yeah, so there's more green lion hits, and there's a pillar of fire that finished him off. Holy cow. Look at that. Okay, well, we know what killed the Boread. Yeah, that was a good hit. But, and then a shockwave wiped out a golem.
Yeah. The people, I think, I think Naba is super cap focused, but their second big mage, the Sahir, they're very good.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, these guys, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. So that was a costly battle. I think we've seen what we wanted to see. So between green lion friendly fire and lots of close range evocations, those poor super combatants took a beating. All things considered, I would have probably, if I had, I shouldn't say that. I've done battles where I've guessed incorrectly at what my opponent was going to do and had very expensive wipeouts. And that may be a bit of what's happening here. But it definitely looks like this combination of green lions with your super combatants going in front of them is not so good. Because there's really almost no resistance you can get for this corrosive, this vitriol breath. Because it's untyped. So, no, yeah, it's untyped damage, so very little you can do. Right, let's go back to the question from Alderain about how do you transition. So we can take a moment here. I'll go back to, whoops, holy cow, out of memory. I got too many things running. I got to shut some stuff down. That's my mistake. I've got audio editing open, and all kinds of silly things open. So I'll close some stuff. This is the Warhammer map, which we discussed earlier this week in a different questions and answers session on maps, which you can see on Twitch and will be going up on YouTube eventually. So what else have I got open? Oh, I don't need Spotify open. Come on, close Spotify. What else is open? Picture viewer, don't need that open. Alright, let's see if Dominions will open again. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I've been hearing quite a few people talk about memory errors lately. So we'll go back briefly to... I didn't archive a lot of these games because I was a sub, and I didn't think there was a lot interesting, and then one of my online friends suggested that this whole business of preparing this gatewaying beachhead generated an interesting combination. So this is kind of mid-game. So we can maybe talk about the transition that he has done, the fellow that I subbed for. And the first thing he did with the transition is he definitely started shifting to heavily on the reanimating Sapias. And what makes that work is you use your Royal Malkeys and you make the Huaca headdress. And so each Royal Malkey is making 3 Sapaya a turn. You can spend gems to get Sapayas. Yeah, Sapaya factories is a very important transition. Another transition, I would say, although you might want to even start this early, but getting a decent number of, here we go, guys making slaves. Not that guy, this guy. The slaves are useful for patrolling, they're useful for chaff, for siege chaff, and then I've also got some reanimation of Long Dead going on. You can see here. But I would argue that early game, your Condor Warriors and your Summon Condors are really important, but eventually you just can't get enough Condor Warriors. When you compare the what am I getting here, 7 Condor Warriors a turn to 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 21 Sapayas a turn coming here already, and then there's more to come, and that depends on how many. So definitely I'd be switching. The other thing about Sapayas is once you can get some area of effect protection buffs, I mean, you can even, if you happen to figure out a way to get into some nature, you can go Wooden Warriors. 10 protection with Body of Third, that's a big improvement. But even better is when you can start doing Iron Warriors. And then what I ended up going for was Marble Warriors. So that's a mid-game thing. I was doing Marble Warriors with Huron Priests. So the E2 Huron Priests could Earth Power and then Marble Warriors all over the place. I think I might have, I don't have an example of that in this. But, so we'll jump back out to, so that would be a significant transition for Nazca to go into, from early game to middle game, is start looking at Sapayas and buffing them. The other thing is to start using battle magic, of course, because you've got massive amounts of battle magic choices. Communions, now where were we? We were on, I think, 73 or so. Communions are kind of a challenge with Nazca because your only really easy communion magi are pretty expensive. And you only get the ones with the astral random. So 1 in 3 of your Huron priests can be a communion slave, unless you want to somehow, for some crazy reason, use your own Royal Malkeys as communion slaves. Sure wouldn't be my choice. So communions, you can do them. I only use communions in this game for very, very specific, critical, really high path. It was easier to use extra gem or some kind of a booster to get some of those key spells, like Fog Warriors and later on Army of Lead and so on and so forth. So Alderain, how's that for an answer? Any further questions related to that? No? Alright. So I'm going to divert for a minute to Tronky's question, or not question, comment about the Warhammer map. I would not pick this map in the future. A couple of reasons. I like the look. I like the parchment look of it. But mage selection and capital turn usage, sure, I'll go back to that in a second. It's also crazy large. This was, I think we did the math, 23 provinces per player. And we had, originally they had 18 players, I think this is, or 16. But 23 provinces per player, that just makes, we eventually just conceded this game as we weren't ever going to get it finished. You can see that we've already got 1, 2, 4 AIs, and it just keeps getting worse. So there's a couple things with this map that make it not so fun for multiplayer. The first is there's no wraparound. So I got stuck in a corner and had to do all kinds of funky ways to try to stay relevant to the game, like buying transport rights over Agartha so that I could try to take out Man, who was the leader. The other frustrating thing with this map is you've got sections of the map that are all the same terrain. So if you get your start in a terrain that's bad for your nation, you're kind of crippled from the get-go. This start for Nazca's not bad. It's mountains and hills. That's not bad. But over here, this is all jungle. So there are definitely nations that this would not be fun. Not be fun. So those kind of two things, and arguably with the number of provinces, I think you've got to play this at 24 players minimum to be reasonable. Transport rights? I just asked him if I could take his PD to move my giant armies. And then I paid him a little bit of gold and the gems that I used, and it was temporary. Does that make sense? One of the reasons is I had a non-aggression pact with Agartha, and he also had reached the point where, due to real life things, he couldn't really put his efforts into the game, so he was going to play passive. And I had planned to astral travel onto Man. He took it back eventually, but I ran this route for about 4 or 5 turns until I could get to this province here, Griffin Rock, and put up a lab. But yeah, once I moved on, he took it back. I just left a single PD and empty. So I just paid him the gold and gems that it cost him. And I deliberately didn't, mess with any of his forts. Yeah, that's what I meant by transport rights. Or an easement, to use an engineering term. I purchased an easement from his territory. Kind of like, the Panama Canal on land. Good. All right. So Alderaan wanted to talk about middle game transitions in terms of mage selection. Well, your research monkeys for Nazca are pretty obviously the Isla. You're going to want a lot of them, and they're very economical. 100 gold for 9 research, and they're sacred, so low. But they're not super battle magi. They're a lot better once you get Storm. Once you get Storm, these things can all lightning bolt. And I think I can show you some scripts here where I'm using them as battle magi. Got any here? There we go. So here's the script I used for them for battle magi. And they're also cheap enough to throw your lightless lanterns and your owl quills and your skull mentors on. But there's a really simple script. A lot of people prefer the map nuke generator for MP. It's not as pretty, but the map nuke generator made by Nuke produces, I think, a more balanced. You still should check. Yeah, Rovsky's got a good point. You should really look at your maps before you play them. I basically ask any admins to post the map, and then I run a test on them. Like, I'll use the actual nations in the game and play them a couple times. Yeah, and you need to play with the settings for the generator. But I think Map Nuke makes better maps in terms of balance. They're just not very good looking.
If I might
Go ahead, Rob.
for Nazca. In the early game, Royal Malki are very expensive to
Yes,
buy.
totally.
You basically have no way to do it, but if you've
No,
killed somebody and you have their land plus yours, you might switch from making Incas just
yeah,
straight to Royal Malkis because it's much more turn efficient.
absolutely. Well, when you jumped in, I mentioned that I find that I constantly need a few Incas and a few Koyas simply for the flying. I Okay, Rovsi's good and loud on mine, so I'm not sure what's happening there because I've got good volume. I don't want to turn him up anymore.
I might just be talking a little bit away from my
Oh,
microphone.
there we go.
It's helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Your peaks are. I can turn you up a little bit without. I don't want to cause any clipping. Yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah, Rob's got a good voice. So I'm with Rovsi that in the early game you're really not going to be able to buy your Royal Malkis. But you could get your first couple by suiciding a Koya or a Inca. And I do find I want a few Koyas and Incas, even throughout the later game. And I did lose a few, sometimes in critical moments late in the game where I ended up having to get some more. So there's a transitioning to Royal Malkis. I think your heavy lifters for Battle Magi are definitely Huron Priests. And hopefully you keep them as Huron Priests so they can fly. Just trying to make where are they here? The Malky priests move around the map is kind of annoying. You could do it, but it's a little irritating.
I'm curious, how do you feel about the national nature mages that you get, the human ones?
Well, this is a Dominion's enhanced game, so
They have
Rob put in a couple of spells that make those things wonderful. Where are we
okay.
here? The Madramont. You got this. So you can only cast it in forest. It takes one of those Pacos, and what you get is this. So I mean, that's pretty sweet. So I've been buying a few Pacos. I don't know what. There are some ways you could use a Paco to. Where have I got? I think the Pacos, I put them in one of these forests so they could summon some more. I know there's Pacos here somewhere. Where'd they go? I should use F1 to find them. Just look for some nature. But if you could figure out any way to get into nature too, and then buy a Paco, I mean, suddenly you've got the ability to do some bootstrapping into nature. I think I might have accidentally killed him, and I had to buy
Well,
some more. Oh, there he is.
the way that when I was looking at the nation, I haven't actually played them in multiplayer yet.
Yeah.
But when I was thinking about them, I was thinking of it as sort of like a nature indie,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah,
you basically have guaranteed access to it on mountains, I believe.
absolutely. Well, the other one is this guy has a couple of nice foragings.
He alerted me.
The Paco of Mountain Spirits. He's got a couple of nice things he can forage. I like rainbow armor for a lot of things. Um, and it's a disease healer, you know. So, but I didn't buy very many. It's a nuisance that they're a heretic. Not a big issue. Uh, so in this game, I only bought a few of them for specific foraging and for specific summons. But this game has a rainbow pretender. He is sitting here, making stuff. So diversifying into nature was easy. I just got naiads and cocythiads and stuff. Well,
Right.
cocythiads for more
Makes sense.
death. Yeah. I would mention as
I'm
well.
gonna do. No,
Yeah.
go on.
Well, I was just going to mention. This is the second game I've played with Nazca. This one I subbed. In both cases, we took a mild rainbowish bless and diversity options. I think you can do just fine with Nazca with medium scales and medium bless. instead of going crazy with the Super Bless.
Yeah, I've seen both of them work.
Yeah.
I do want to say, I don't know, I guess you could do, if you wanted to, something like even Stygian rings.
Oh, totally. Totally.
That would maybe be used for Cocythians as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm very fond of Cocythiads if you've got the water gems. And see,
Yeah,
this
they're a
guy,
really good way to turn water gems into strong mages.
yeah, and this guy found somewhere here, he found hydromancers. So I've got plenty of water magi, and you can see I've converted them into water queens. But in this game, I'm also running right now under burden of time, so I stopped buying more hydromancers. I mean, this is plenty for most purposes. A little bit of foraging and stuff like that. And once I was able to get a couple of water queens, that's more than sufficient for battle magic with the little bit of water I had. Now, I'm going to back up to another question. Aldrain, yeah, mage selection and capital turn usage. So I think we've covered capital turns. Both Rovsi and I agree that you start with Incas and a few Koyas. And as you can afford it, you start spamming out Royal Malkis. And definitely you also want to spam out, because this is a standard item, the Huaca headdress. And then the rest of the Magi, it's really mostly the two. Just mixing it up between Aklas and Huron Priests. But I think Huron Priests are a better battle mage. There's quite a lot of options depending. You can skeleton spam, you can power the spheres and do some things. You can be a communion slave. And at least if you die as a communion slave, you get turned into a mummy, so you're still functional. So does that pretty much cover your questions, Alderain? Good. Alright, I'll show turn 74. Now, Captain Pennyworth was here.
We had a question on Discord.
On Discord. John Flint. Oh, I'm not really sure if I can realistically answer about. He's asked how do you tips for EA Alm versus Yomi. I don't really have anything to show there, so if it's not a hurry, I'll put it.
Probably dependent on the Yomi Bless.
Probably. I think what I'll do is I'm going to quickly go over to my little notes on topics and bring that up as a questions, and we might be able to talk about it tomorrow, and I'll try to do some preparation. John, are you going to be around tomorrow? So, EA Alm versus Yomi. But I'd like to have something to show, since this is it's an online thing. Thanks for letting me know about the question. How do you win a game with Nazca? Well, a throne rush is extremely possible because of your ungodly amount of siege power. Like, absolutely ungodly amount of siege power.
Condors are, in terms of patrol strength and siege strength, one of the most efficient tools in the game.
There's that. There's also, when you're running around with 1,000 of the Hatun Runas, the cheap slaves.
They have tons of flying sacreds who have high ability and good siege strength. They have tons of flying troops and slave troops who can contribute siege strength.
Like even these guys.
Excellent ability to raid. They have flying death 2 mages.
Yeah.
And they have lots of flying sacreds that the flying mages can bless and lead around. So they have a lot of really potent abilities to strike at people.
Exactly. I would be definitely...
The subpar in gold cost, and it has 2 siege strength, is really, really good at cracking forts.
Yep. I would also want to mention regarding sort of end game. Um, uh, you also have plenty of ways to teleport and gateway all over the place, and you can forge all the flying widgets you want if you've got the air gems to spare. One of the reasons I didn't make a lot of condors is I ended up making a heck of a lot of flying carpets in order to get my royal mankeys moving around. So that was a pretty critical use of air gems. And I was also hanging on to air gems for the secondary purpose of I might want to, depending on how things develop, I was thinking of overcasting Galegate. So I just felt that given my situation, I had a few condors here. That's pretty much all the condors I had in the game. So it was my view that condors had kind of passed their optimal point. But you want to siege something. 4 siege points, yeah. For what? A gem apiece, basically. Yeah, so those are kind of the ways I'd look at how to use Nazca. You could also just flat out conquer somebody. Nazca's one of the, I would call it, you've got nations that are tall in their design, and you've got nations that are broad. And Nazca's kind of fat and wide, plus tall. It's got hugely broad tools, plus really, really top-end tools. It's a very powerful nation. So we can see I'm kind of continuing my travels. So beyond sort of build up, have I done my fight here yet? No. Next turn we'll have a fun fight to watch. Kind of went bad. I'm trying to, I don't know why I picked 2 wars, but I did. I was getting bored. Stuck in a corner gets boring.
Yeah, especially on a large map.
Yeah. I should mention I made a heck of a lot of these Boitatas. They're pretty cool, but they're a Dominions Enhanced goodie. So if you're playing normal, you won't see them. But if you have a look at them, they're sitting back here waiting to gateway. These crazy things. So you get those for 3. You get those for 3 fire gems a pop. So it's mage turn expensive, but gems very, very cheap.
I have heard that they have a really strong attack called an eye strike. I don't know.
Yes, they do. They take the eyes out. It's like the eye shield.
So is it just on damage, or is it on hit?
Looks like it's on damage. Yeah,
Okay.
it's on damage.
Which would be the balanced way to do it.
Yeah, but they've got pretty good attack skill.
I think they have beam fire damage too. Isn't Drake fire?
This is a beam. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a battle coming up where we'll see them, but it's a little bit farther along. We might not get to it in this session. We should. I'm kind of hoping to just finish up this Nazca. I know I was going to cover a topic for Captain Pennyworth, but he had to leave and didn't get back, so that may wait for another day. So there's still not a fighting, but I believe. So, what's the story here? This was fine. So I sieged him. I used a pocket ship. This was frustrating. I'll show you why I lost the Inca. And this is one of those little glitches you make. I mean, I shouldn't be showing my errors, right? So, I put my formations a little bit too close together, and it pushed these Poison Cloud children of Tiamat too far back. They were supposed to be, I had set them up about here, or like kind of right in the midst of the Condor Warriors, but I didn't spread out the long dead enough, and so my poor Inca, there he is sitting right in the middle.
They're pretty strong, but you don't want them poisoning your own mages to death. as to the question, child of Tiamat, yay or nay?
I shouldn't have brought him into this fight. In the water, yeah.
Yeah, and then you can also, you probably want, if you have important stuff that's going to be fighting with them, you probably want poison resistance.
Totally. But originally, they are being led by Limna here, the queen, and they were her escorts. They should have stayed. She didn't need to be in this fight. There was no reason to do this. I mean, she's basically useless in this big mob of everything. So there's a couple errors here. First off, some formation setup errors because, the trouble is when you're doing your army setup, let's just jump out here. You look here at army setup, it's not really obvious that there's a problem. So I think
you want, it's pretty important to, if the order of troops is important, you have to distinguish them out.
Yeah. So I think this is the setup I had, and then in addition the long dead, which they were in blobs, I believe, like blocks rather than lines. And but I mean, look here, I'm running out of room in the back, so I've got two squads overlapping each other, so they're going to spread out in somewhat unpredictable ways. And so that's one of the difficulties of the battle setup screen, is it's not exact. And this is a prime example of where it cost me. It wasn't a huge problem, except that this also cost me a Koya, because when you kill an Inca, it also kills a Koya to make a Malki, and if I remember right, she was here, loaded up with troops. So I had to figure out new ways to, no, she was not there, she was somewhere in this transport corridor I talked about. So I had to do a whole bunch of fiddling to get all those troops onto some other commander. Because with her death, you can see it down here, should say. Yeah. So it should say about the Royal Malki. It's not quite clear. Is it? Oh, there we go. Mama Cora Oklo, the Koya, was sacrificed and added to the mummy bundle. And it is funny that I think they picked the next marriage partner from the next one that was recruited in the order of recruitment. But that doesn't mean you're going to know where the heck on the map they are. So accidentally killing an Inca or a Koya could leave you in an awkward situation. It didn't in this situation, in this case, but it could. There's not a whole heck of a lot else to show about this fight, other than, Now, one of the things generally I've used throughout all these Nazca fights is a mix of attack and then attack rear, and generally putting up storm. Is storm going up? So I put up rigor mortis. And I believe I should have relief going up. The mummies go back to the cap. Well, they go back to the fort where the original guy was recruited. So for the royals, it's always back to the cap. And there's relief. So obviously, normally with rigor and with relief, you should have fairly minimal casualties for fatigue. If any, really. And that's the end of the fight, more or less. But I didn't need the Water Queen in this fight. With that many troops, that really wasn't necessary. And it wasn't all that helpful to have the children of Tiamat involved. So there you go. Pretty straightforward. Just quickly glancing back. So you can see that I'm pretty sure that every one of these Condor warriors I lost to the poison clouds. So that didn't really do me any good. But That wasn't the easiest thing for Fascia to deal with. So I'm going to jump to the next turn. 76. We're going to come close to finishing off this little detour into Nazca. I'm still doing a little bit of site searching. Oh, who put up, which one was this? Oh, yeah, somebody else decided to put up Galegate. I think in this case, Man took it over. Yeah, Man took it over from Fascia. But hey, what the heck, at least I wasn't frustrating the heck out of other people. Other messages. So I actually had a few units killed, but of course this guy just gets mummified. The Huron priest. These are the events from that global. You can see I've got Pedosian doing a little bit of hunting and then just a little bit of foraging. Predominantly I had him making earth stones, which is very helpful because Royal Malkies are great for casting earth buffs, but they don't have any feet. And this was a bloody disaster. Well, I didn't lose too many of the Magi. I did lose the Queen of the Lake. I lost the Lich. But he kind of stopped me pretty good there. So that didn't really work. Now, we did lose a lot of Colossi Weavers, so he lost more Magi than I did. And most of mine are pretty easily replaced. I guess his are also easily replaced. But I can't remember what it was that went wonky. I wasn't the player during the initial research climb. I subbed in about turn 40, it was. So I can't really answer you, Alderain, on when he started the research climb. I already had a huge bunch of Owl Quills, Skull Mentors, and Lightless Lanterns when I took over the game. So he was well underway with a serious research push. And it looked to me, we'll just jump out of this battle to talk about that question. When I first started this, he had Construction 6, I think was one of his first things he grabbed. So I think he did a very deliberate push, probably grabbed, critical alteration, a little bit of evocation, and then rushed Construction 6 to go for Lightless Lanterns. Because if this wasn't a Dominions Enhanced game, it would be hard to really make use of a lot of those fire gems, with the exception of Huaka headdresses. I have to take a brief pause. I will be back in a couple minutes. Okay, I'm back. So, Alderain, is that a pretty clear answer on the question of the... I mean, you could see here the research on turn 76. I've got just about everything I really might ever want. Some of the things I was targeting was, in case it came up, I've got Master and Slave. I've got Undead Mastery. Most of your games don't go to 77. I know, most of mine do. there's some, yeah, there's some reasons why most of my games go late. One of them is I generally select. Well, I suppose there's a couple things. I've noticed now I play a lot of Disciples games, and Disciples games are quite a bit faster because with the sharing of research items and the sharing of gems and the fact that you can coordinate 2 or 3 different nations for throne rushing, you've got more ways to pull off a throne rush. So my last couple of Disciples games I won, and in both cases we throne rushed around turn 50 to 60. But in my free-for-all games, I think one of the core elements to having long games is I really don't play with new players. I only play with, hopefully, very experienced players. Although you have to kind of go on an honor system when you're organizing a game and say, okay, tell us how much experience you have. But the latest administrators have been actually interviewing the players saying, okay, and asking questions like, well, how do you deal with this or that? So that's an element. And just a few days ago, I did a video which I have just uploaded to YouTube on how do you defend against a rush. And I was demonstrating that I haven't lost a rush. I'm rarely rushed. And the last rush, I still lived to turn 40. And the guy who rushed me also died. So, if you know all the tricky tidbits of trying to stay alive against a rush, rushing you becomes a very risky maneuver. So that's the shortest game I've had in a long time, was turn 40, where I died. And I didn't die from the original rusher, I died from his friends, who then came in and finished me off. Because he died before I did. So some of the reasons to play games late is just being stubborn. Really, really stubborn. You're losing, but you still keep doing every single crazy little bizarre option you can pull out. And sometimes those are the cases where you start using those very niche spells or very niche items that you otherwise wouldn't go anywhere near. So we were going to have a look at what happened in this battle. So my setup is significantly better. That the poison clouds are not going to affect my flyers. Still not entirely sure why I bothered with the queen. Because in an army kind of this jammed up, a super combatant isn't going to do a lot. I'm using the King of Flames as a battle mage. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see what his script is. And
well, at your research level, there are things you could do with water fives, like I believe hilarity is 90.
But I didn't send any gems.
Yeah, that's an issue.
Or if I did, they've just arrived with a scout. In fact, they had just arrived with the scouts. So he attacked me before I could kind of set this up.
That's why you have to gem mule with your army, but then they're vulnerable to remote stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of...
Yeah. Well, we can just back out for a second. You can see the gem mules are sitting there. And see, she's not amphibious, and I didn't build her a ring of, or an amulet of the fish. So I kept her in the water. So I only had the one water mage, and yeah, there's the water gems I just sent. Plus, to get them over there, I had to give them water breathing to even get them there. So, and then all the big shots that came across for that fight had pocket ships.
Which does not help you in your retreating.
Not much. Well, the King of Earth was okay because he went into the water.
Yeah. Probably the Lich would be okay too, right?
I think the Lich got killed. Yeah, see, I cast Firestormers. No. What is that? What spell is that? I think that's one of those weird Dominion's Enhanced spells.
There are GE ones, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that... Let's see what he cast. No,
Look at
that's
his
just...
army of
That's just...
legendary.
He just did Fire Fend. Yeah,
Oh,
Fire
okay,
Fend.
yeah.
Oh, heat fatigue damage. Somebody... That's...
Okay.
Yeah. This guy's putting up Army of Lad. He's done it. So that's done.
Yes, that's fatigue damage to all the people around him.
It is. And then she's...
Well, he doesn't actually do any damage because
She's doing relief. Okay. And the Mound King... What's the Mound King doing here? Just raised dead. Oh, okay. Oh, Oh, I was low on gems. Bummer. And the Lich... What did the Lich cast? Raised dead. Ah, shoot. Yeah, I was short of gems. So, that wasn't awesome. There's a couple other options that could have happened there. These guys look like they're decayed. Is that decay? Just the dark indicator. I don't recognize this flickery red and gray thing. I'm not really sure what
I think
that
one of
is.
those is Army of Lead and one of those is Fire Fend.
Could be. Oh, forked lightning. Oh yeah, that's an interesting one. Do you know what that spell is?
It's basically a stronger lightning bolt because it has bouncing lightning on it.
Oh
as
no,
you
I
can
meant
see.
this one that looks like bless everywhere. The columns
That one,
looks like something astral, like a battlefield-wide
it's some sort of
solar
astral
rays.
thing. I forget what it's called.
Okay, I wonder if he cast it. This one.
It's interesting that you jump on as mages and you still lose the fight.
Yeah, well that's
You're
Will of...
on.
I know. That's Will of Fates. But he did a sandwich formation, so he's got pretty solid troops behind the Magi.
No, that's like, you're
No.
on his communion.
Oh,
aren't
you're
you?
right. Yeah, I am. Well, he's got 20 protection on his Magi.
With Fog Warriors too.
Mm-hmm.
And Ethereal.
Mm-hmm. That's probably why. Yeah. Oh, there's a mass ethereal spell in DE, isn't there?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. I thought maybe there was.
Check his further forward troops.
No, they're not ethereal. So it wasn't a mass ethereal.
I think it was just while he was
Lots
waiting
of-
for
lots
Storm
of
and
body
everything to go up,
ethereal.
maybe.
Well, he forked himself a little bit to make a bad pun. That was intentional. Fork you, man.
Yeah, I guess we just don't have enough damage to go through.
No, well, Sapeas don't hit super hard.
Yeah, which is why sometimes people take strength because condors
Yeah.
don't hit super hard either.
No, not particularly. Yeah, you know, a
Do they have
lance,
storm power by any chance?
condors do and Sapeas do. Yeah.
You sure that's not just storm immunity?
Oh, storm immunity, not storm power. Sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
they don't have storm power. No.
Because that would make them significantly stronger.
It would. Yeah, he's buffed so well that I'm just not killing enough. I mean, I got 17 of those, but it wasn't fast enough.
Right.
And perhaps arguably it would have been nice if my front line was faster. It's taken a long time for my front line to get up there. Or maybe I should have put some infantry in the original formation much, much farther forward. See, in battles a little bit later here, I also didn't realize that army was there. If we quickly pop out,
Your scouting of him was not the greatest.
inadequate for the purpose I was doing. That was 75. But
That's
also,
one of the most important things you can do is scout your opponent when you're attacking them. Or before you're attacking them, actually.
Absolutely, but the problem I had was, other than scrying, see, I scryed here, and I do scry later on. But see, I'm only seeing 122 units. So how did he get... I didn't think... I forgot about the
You
fact
can
that he's
fail.
got that sailing. Yeah, I forgot about it. So, anyways,
He probably had stuff on the throne, and he failed over.
but you can also argue that what the hell was I doing picking 2 wars? I mean, what's the point of that?
Yeah, I mean, man is big enough to fight by themselves, right?
Well, and man was, once I figured out how, was obviously more important, because I knew from diplomacy and discussions that man was very totally eating up all of Ermer, and I figured he was probably, and I'm pretty sure if I was looking at the throne situation, and there was a 1, 2, 3, 4. It looked 5. It looked to me like man had 6, 7. That's 7 thrones, all within the area that I felt that man could either currently own or grab. So I felt that in order to stop losing, I had to attack man. But the fascist thing was sort of, I couldn't get everybody to man, so maybe I'll just pick another fight for the heck of it.
Right, that's late enough in the game that sometimes you can tell that a game's not going to finish. Like, you're looking at Scalaria. Scalaria's friendly with you and the Garth, and they're not really doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the Garth friendly with you and Scalaria, and they're not really doing anything. There's a lot of people that are AI, so it's kind of... You can kind of tell when they peter out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just go for it. I mean, this is not... And if we glance back here, most of the rest of the folks that I could have tried to bring into it were still... I jumped ahead of myself. This would have gone better if I'd have waited 2 or 3 more turns before I tried going over there. So, because I've got a whole bunch more Royal Malkies here. I could have made a bunch more pocket ships. I could have possibly jumped here, put up a lab. There was a lot of other options. I think I just got a little cocky, and I thought, he won't be able to stop me.
I think there's nothing wrong with playing aggressively. Even if you lose and you get slapped down, you can still learn new tactics and learn new stuff about the game.
Yeah, and if this had worked, I'd have cracked that fort, probably stormed it, and then I would have had a really solid beachhead. So,
right.
So it's a back and forth. But as far as that battle, I was not particularly successful, so I'm going to go back to turn 76. I don't think we're going to learn a lot more by watching more of that battle. We could just have a quick look down in the areas by man. And there we are. So I have arrived. So now I'm labbing. The last of the armies, and this one's the heavy mage corps, is coming through. Everybody will kind of park their butts here. I've got a little bit of food items because I knew that I don't largely care if I starve out a few of these slaves, but I didn't want starvation to occur to my more valuable units. And here, again, a little bit of issues with supplies. Got some food, and I'm prepping. You can see there's a Koya, so I'm prepping the option for her to gateway. And I've got some extra command items, so on and so forth. It's another advantage to the Koya and the Inca is they have full slots. So there are useful times when you want to have that. So I'm just going to keep chugging along. 77. And we're getting very close to the end, because we only went to turn 81 and then we just called it. Winged monkeys. So man's trying something. He grabbed a Napuscapue. That isn't particularly useful. I just am doing a bit of probing. and I thought I would try seeing if I could raid with just, but then I wasn't expecting him to jump out with 13 knights. But it's all just a case of, just like when they first landed on the beaches in Normandy, one of the first steps is to spread both directions and broaden your base. So you've got somewhere to retreat to, so on and so forth. And that is my goal at this point in time. As you can see, I'm sending out a couple of moderate size raids. This one's quite small. And basically I'm just using the, this guy's got some pretty bad afflictions, so I'm just using him to spread some body ethereal. And I didn't really need to do the living fire, but it's sort of an easy solution. And then over here, I'm going to go take out this fort. So I've taken a moderate portion of my combat magi. Most of the... Oh, there's that immaterial army. This is that everybody body ethereal spell. So there is one. And then other big buffs. Storm, Will of Fates, Arrowfand, should have Army of Lead, Divine Blessing, Mass Regen, Army of Lead, Fog Warriors, and Thunderfend. So that's a pretty stacked up set of buffs. But no fights this turn, so we'll move on to 77. And I still am not seeing anything too significant for man, because that's nothing too amazing. That's just the province defense, and again, just the province defense. So somewhere or other, man told me in diplomacy that he has a great big doom stack, but I haven't seen it yet. So we're on to 78. Looks like we're kind of going to finish up this little overview of this game in one streaming session. So I've lost a couple of Aklas from Taint. A little bit of magic sites. There's the gateway. So I brought in another bunch. There is a pretty good sized man army. I don't think anywhere near big enough to be the issue. This battle, nothing really to see here, just a province defense. This battle, again, nothing much to see here. The King of Magma was going to do that job just fine. And I am continuing. There's more gateways building. I haven't sent another one yet, but there's another one ready. And I think I'm just sending a probe here. Yeah, it's just a raid with some things I can afford to sacrifice. You can see Marble Warriors, I felt that was worthwhile. Put those on the Nightmares. And then another small raid over here. So I just split up a couple of these same ideas. One group of Marble Warriors, a little bit of magic, and some bait, just some cheap long dead.
Can you go back to that again?
I sure
Those are
can.
nightmares. I thought
They
those
were
land
nightmares.
horses.
No,
I
no.
was wondering when they were.
No, they're nightmares. They're actually somewhere or other. There's a location where my predecessor and myself were just slowly buying nightmares. They really weren't very relevant to the game, but I brought them along.
Yeah, they don't hurt.
No. No. Well, I have lots of gold, but that's why they're starving. So.
They're starving because we don't have enough supply items. But,
Yeah. Well, it was constantly kind of juggling. And I was running pretty low on nature gems, and I needed to keep a good
nature
selection.
Gems are, if anybody's ever complaining that they can't spend their nature gems, not sound.
They don't understand the game.
Especially once you get this late and you have enough nature mages to cast all the spells you want. There are so many good nature spells.
Exactly. It's better now that you've got the cornucopias for the temporary gems. It was significantly rougher before we had cornucopias. But they're not cheap either. Alright, so that's 78. I'm probably going to just sort of wind up this little overview of this Nazca game. And that'll be the end of the session. I've got a lot of viewers today, so nothing too huge. Now, here comes man. There he is. So he smashed my little raid. I don't know why he lost a mother. Might have been just some little glitch. And he lost a knight as well, so something funny there. And this is an interesting mix and match of all kinds of different things. He's got 180 gems worth. Oh no, they're a little cheaper in Dominions Enhanced. So I think he's got something like 150 gems worth of Ether Lords and Ether Warriors. That's not cheap. These guys, standard. So mostly this is all, but I think one of these is his Pretender. Can't really tell here. I'm not going to watch this fight though. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, I don't think any of those are. Maybe the Fae. Those look like heroes, mostly.
Yeah, they do look like heroes. Yeah. And should be able to see his scales. He's got piles of luck, so chances are a lot of those are heroes.
Even with like Misfortune 1 or 2, you're gonna have probably a few heroes by turn 70 something.
Mm-hmm. Something I kind of didn't really pay attention to, and now that you mention it, I didn't get very many heroes with Nazca.
What are your scales?
Luck. But maybe Nazca doesn't have many heroes.
Did you get the first couple at any point?
I don't know. I don't know who they are.
It's an 8. It's only an 8-3 in the game, and it's often wished for. It's seldom gotten.
An 8-3 and what? Oh, an 8 caster.
An 8 caster 3.
I've got this one. That hero. But
it's the Royal Map. Yeah, it's really strong.
I don't know. I don't know if I've got it. I don't remember seeing it in this game anywhere. Oh, real noob question. Does fighting within your own dominion give any base bonuses? Well, your Pretender and or Disciples get blessed if they're in your dominion. So that's pretty big. Like Disciples in a Disciple game. So that's pretty huge. It's important for monster expander pretenders. If they run too far out of dominion, they're quite a bit weaker. But Tronky, the biggest advantage to fighting in your dominion is absolutely for your Pretender. Other things, not so much. Both his hit points and his bless. And same with your Prophet.
Well, I would say the morale can be significant.
Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm. It only gives the +1 to your sacreds, though, right?
It gives +1 to everybody.
Oh, okay.
Whereas fighting an enemy dominion is a -1 for everybody, so it's a +2. It's a 2-point swing, basically.
Okay.
So it can be pretty significant.
Your Pretender isn't sacred, but it's blessed. If you have a bless.
Your Pretender is only blessed in your own dominion, so the candles aren't going to show up. The little candelabra that shows if it's blessed or not isn't going to show up if it's an enemy dominion.
But the sacred does not show or your Pretender. Oh, here, look at my Pretender. Your Pretender will not show the sacred icon. It will show the blessed icon, and then it shows the Pretender icon. But it does not show the sacred icon. Because your Pretender can't worship itself. So it's not sacred to itself.
Very strangely, the Pretender also cannot build temples to themselves. For some reason.
Yeah, that is a little odd. Yeah.
Which in certain situations can be pretty annoying.
Well, I'm going to jump to...
without any priest mages and your capital temple burns down or something?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe Illwinter wants us to stay humble. Well, given that Illwinter are pretty humble guys, actually, Like I have volunteered with them now for 7 years, different jobs, and just interactions with them. They're pretty humble guys. I only know of a single case where they gave an interview to anybody, and that was to a podcast called Three Moves Ahead. It's the only time I've ever heard their voices. I'm not aware of them going to cons or giving any kind of voice interviews or hardly anything. So they're either shy or they're humble. So maybe they want us to be humble too. Sadly, I'm not the most humble guy. I don't think you could be humble and go be a YouTuber or a streamer. That could be. This interview was specifically was set up by Bruce Garrick, who was the guy who wrote all the manuals. So he's a good friend of theirs and did some contracts for them. So it was his podcast. So that probably had an awful lot to do with why they agreed to do an interview. It's a really interesting interview. I got to dig it up again because I really enjoyed listening to it. It gave me quite a bit of insight into, two guys that I've volunteered for now for years. And I still sometimes am not sure I really know them very well at all. They're just very quiet. But I'm going to jump out and show turn 80 because that's basically the end of this game. This is, I think, where the band player just decided, you know what? This is going to take a long, long time, and I'm going to lose, and I'm not really in the mood. And my reaction was, well, I'm a substitute, so I don't have a lot of vested interest in this game. It's been fun, and I've had a good time. But this was a painful, painful battle for man. You can see I lost some long dead, and I lost some long dead. Oh, and a few Sabayas. And my poor Lich, because I burnt him up accidentally. And he lost everything but one guy got away.
But the Lich is a Lich, so it's fine.
There's that too. Except that he's like 8 turns away. Even with flying. Because he was summoned way back at my capital.
Shockingly, the only person who made it out was some random infantry group.
Mm-hmm. What are Liches good for? They're the highest level base death mage in the game. So death 4.
Yeah,
that anybody can summon.
4.
Yeah, and they're immortal.
Also, yeah, immortal.
But most importantly, in my opinion, they're the best summonable battle mage for death. If you want darkness and...
For generic summons.
Yeah, that's what I mean by generic summons, yeah. Some people prefer Wraith Lords, but they have lower magic. They're a lot tougher.
No, Mound Fiends are sacred, and they are the only generic reanimator priest, but they're lower in death level.
But I really like Mound Fiends to get to Liches.
How do you go from a Mound Fiend to a Lich?
Yeah.
You need a second booster, right?
Yeah, you gotta figure out how you're gonna make the helmet. Nah,
Things are too expensive.
I would never reanimate. You're gonna get 7 long dead a turn for 28 death gems. That just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I would definitely not do that.
Worse. It's like using Archbishops of Eldergate from Airmore. Only they're only Holy 2 instead of Holy 3.
Yeah. Well, no, I really like Mound Fiends as battle magi.
Mound Fiends still have Death 3. So if you give them Skull Staff, that's
exactly.
That's enough to cast Darkness or Rigor Mortis or what have you. Life
after death. Yeah. Yeah, they're an excellent battle mage. So once you've used them for, and they're a lot cheaper as a darkness caster with the staff than a Lich. So, they don't have the immortal though, but hopefully you have the sense to keep your battle magi alive. I get Mound Fiends regularly if I'm moving up in death. If I've got natural death magi that are death 3, I won't get Mound Fiends. I'm playing for Moria right now with base. It's not overkill at all. Staff is always good because it reduces the fatigue. If you're Death 4 base, a staff puts you Death 5. If you cast
Well, yeah, and a Lich with a staff can make a skull face and get up to Death 6 and
there you go. Yeah.
cast Well of Misery or something along those lines.
Yeah, yeah. So totally not overkill. But one thing you'll see in this battle is I forgot to put fire resistance armor on the Lich. Tartarian Gate?
Tartarians they can be okay, but they're a significant investment.
My problem with
Right?
Tartarians is
It depends on if you're, I don't know, like late age Arca and you have Death and you can get Tartarians and you also have healers everywhere, then maybe.
you can't heal Tartarians with normal healers.
Oh, that's right. You have to do
Yeah.
Gift of Health.
Only Gift of Health.
What about recuperation? Non-sacred, I guess.
I don't think that works. If you were to give them a recuperation item. There's some recuperation items in Dominion's Enhanced, and if you add the recuperation bless and shrouds, might work. My problem with Tartarians is I find the insanity really irritating. Doesn't mean it's a problem, it's just I really find it irritating.
It's actually not even insanity, it's shattered soul, which
Yeah,
is
that's
technically worse.
yeah, but you know what I mean. Having them not do what you want when you need them to do what you want is awkward.
And somebody who is marching into late age Roulier right now, yes, I understand that. And in fact, I've been fighting in their Dominion for a long time.
Yeah,
And they're
exactly.
slowly making progress, which is
Well, the
not
classic
how you
is
want to have stuff go.
people talk about using Tartarians to diversify and get some big battle, like the Titans, for some big battle magic to cast critical spells. That's great, except that 1 in 4 turns they're not going to move when you tell them, so they become a defensive weapon.
I would say 5 to 7 research level is probably middle game.
So there's an interesting, I got to answer Trunky here, there's an interesting podcast up on the wiki that Pencil's just put up by a couple guys from the Ruby Discord. And they have, their second podcast is how do they define the stages of the game. My definition is early game is expansion. Middle game is when you start using battle magic and or summons. And late game is when you get into the battle-wide battle magic. The stuff that affects everything on the battle. So starting off, Fog Warriors, and or late game could be when you start getting into the bigger late game globals. Anything Research 7 and up. So to me, late game is when you've got at least 1 or 2 level 7 research, maybe a level 8. And then suddenly, Magi, the power of Magi exponentially increases.
I would say also early game is generally considered expansion into a first war if the war is relatively early. Probably ends by around turn 20 after
I'm just going to
people
let this...
reasonably are hitting, I think, like level 5 in their research, and they start significantly investing in mages in combat more so than previously. And I guess in the mid game, people are generally starting to claim and fort thrones more, which they sometimes do in expansion if they have sufficiently good sacreds, but it starts to become more prevalent, and people are generally consolidating after making peace in an early war or winning it.
Yep.
And honestly, research really gets going in the middle game.
Yes, that's when it gets going. I agree. That's another part of the definition. I also tend to think of early game as when just basic armies with bless or just armies are the dominant thing, and Magi are not out much. There's exceptions to that, but most of the time Magi are still sitting at home, site searching, researching. And I think they need to be in the early game. There's an awful big risk if you rush your Magi out to use them in battle too early. It can pay off, but you're costing yourself other things.
Yeah, some nations with certain matchups might feel like they have to do it. Particularly if you're an Earth nation, you might be using Earth Meld because many of them have
Hmm.
troops who don't stack up as well versus Sacreds.
Yeah.
I'm
And a
guessing
few
that's a way to give you an edge.
and a few targeted magi throwing some critical early spells is viable. Okay, well I wanted to stop for the battle. I paused for a sec. So you can see here that this is a typical, well, maybe not typical, but a not uncommon late gauge kind of battle where there are battlefield wide spells going up right, left, and center. I've got Rigor, I've got Relief, he's got Solar Brilliance, I've got Light of the Northern Star, so all my Astral Magi are boosted. I've got Storm, and then on top of that, I've already cast Army of Lead, which doesn't show in the icons, so you can see the protection of these guys is at 23 for garbage troops. I'll be putting up fairly soon. He's put up, what's he casting here? That's Fog Warriors going up. And huge banishes. Look at the size of those banishes. So he's smacking the crap out of my Long Dead. However, no, they haven't. I do put up anti-magic, I believe, so that boosts their magical defense. He's starting, oh, this one's fun. So in Dominions Enhanced, Red Rob has made a battlefield-wide Earth Meld. And almost all my troops fly. Or are strong. So all of a sudden, all of man's guys are stuck. They're all planted. See? These
And
guys
it's
are all
funny as
planted.
well because man can easily cast Mass Flight by this stage of the game.
He didn't. He didn't.
Which would completely dodge it.
Yeah.
Even though Storm is up.
But see, he put up a whole bunch of insects, and they're all stuck.
That looks like a graphical bug.
These? Oh, those are insects.
Well, oh, okay, I guess the screen froze for a second.
Oh, did it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the Earth Meld animations go.
So there's,
glitchy.
so we both got Fog Warriors up. And I've already got a few Sapayas are in the back line.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but do mages who have been hit by Earth Meld cast spells? My guess is no.
I don't know.
So
some of my magi here are
basically stun all of his human mages.
I think so. Well, let's look at the. Oh, this guy's fatigued out, so he wouldn't be casting anyways. But he's not flying, so I can't quite see if he's Earth Melded. Looks like he's not. So he must have broke it already. That's just a bit of luck. But I have almost no other magi here. Maybe the Lich. Is he still melded? Can't really tell. Is there an icon?
I can tell better with the man troops, although Earth Meld should lower defense to basically nothing, so that's
there's a 2. Well, let's look at the Lich again. Defense. Yeah, okay, so the Lich is melded. Yeah, he's definitely melded. Because I'm pretty sure that the staff gives enough. Oh yeah, he's very much melded. So is he still casting? Let's see. Damage roll. Oh, that's because he cast Rigor. So all we can see, a penetration. Okay. All we can see is his Rigor, sadly. The log, his individual log. By the way, for anybody who doesn't know, this is the V key. When you're looking at a guy, if you press V, you get his personal log.
Does it show the entire log for Rigor Mortis?
The log scrolls off eventually. It seems to show about 5 to 10 rounds. So
that's all his Rigor Mortis checks?
Yeah. This is, well...
Okay, it's really unfortunate.
It makes it kind of awkward, yeah. Yeah. I saw the other one. Everything here is Rigor. Pretty much. So I can't tell what he cast. Maybe we'll kind of keep an eye on him here. Looks like he's still melded. Looks like he's not casting.
That can be a good way to stop people from casting spells.
Mm-hmm. I've got Oh, I went and soul vortexed all my communion slaves. I might regret that. Gosh, she's got a whole bunch of spells yet to cast. I wonder what's on her script, what she cast so far. Oh, she cast that immaterial army, so everything's should be ethereal. Or maybe it's not done yet. Oh, it says she cast. Oh, resisted the effect. Oh, it's a magic resistance. So these guys are body ethereal. So not everything has gotten.
There is a mass ethereal.
There is that immaterial army. Yeah.
Why would he do that?
I did it. I cast
why would
it.
Rob do that?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. That might be, but we'd have to look at that spell. So you can see that, my flyers are all behind pretty much everything. So even the ones that break free have nowhere to run. I think these are his thunder strikes mainly. And now I've got Firestorm up, which is what kills my poor Lich. Total mistake on my part. But that just sort of slowly trickle damages. See, I don't think he's put much up in... See, he's put up no large-scale resistance spells. None. And he could have had the potential to put up quite a few of them. And I would have thought... I mean, normally you would do that in a late game battle. Because I think I've put up... Yeah, I've put up cold resistance, fire resistance. The susceptible to shock is due to the army of lead.
He may just not have enough mages.
He had a lot, but yeah.
Yeah, but you can need like specific combos to put everything up and then just not have them all in one area.
And some things decaying things. Not entirely sure what's doing that. See, this guy's decaying. So I'm not entirely sure what's causing decay. The poor trolls, they don't like fire. See, his giants, I thunderstriked his giants. One thing I realized after I watched this fight, my formation could have been better. I should have put these Boitata way up front. Because only a couple of them even get into the fight. They get plugged behind. The Hatun Runas don't fly in the storm. Pardon me?
Did you steal some of his troops?
I got a few enslaved mines happening right, left, and center.
You might have stolen somebody with a decay weapon.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, I'm just not really sure where the decay is coming from. Because Ether Warriors don't. They have a Moonblade. And that one's decaying. So I'm not really sure where the decay is coming from. Yeah, see, it's like there was a small area decay spell sort of hit right here. This is Stellar Cascades, I think, might be what's happening here. Could be a banish.
Did you cast Shadow Blast or anything?
I didn't. But you can see I'm casting the big fire spell.
Maybe he fires himself with it?
Maybe.
Death maybe.
Yeah, he may have. Well, and the Sapayas are kind of... Condor Warriors and Sapayas are sort of landing in the middle of everything all over the place. But I think the reason nobody got away is the combination of flyers in the back, and then so many of them, like even this far into it, some of them are still melted. Should see if the Lich is still melted or if he's dead yet. He's not dead. He's used up his gems.
It's interesting. I wonder if Earthquake after swallowing Earth would be an idea, because if you hit somebody, then you lower their defense, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Never thought of that. Yeah. Trying to understand what the hell is happening? Yes. You can learn a lot if you learn to read the logs.
Not the rigor mortis log, but yes.
No, that one's brutal. But if we were to look at, say, let's look at a log at one of his... Here's his Ether Lord. So let's look at his log. Oh, well, no, okay. He put up something that's doing a penetration. So
With
he's this
with
Ether Lord.
battle, it's this late in the game. There's so much stuff going on that looking at a
Yes.
single person's log isn't as productive. But
No.
especially in the earlier portions of the game, it's pretty easy to. It's a lot easier to see stuff.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot of gems. I guess he was preparing to. He must have empowered this guy. You can't get an
They can get up
air,
to S4 or 5, I think. S4, I think, and then he has 2
but he
boosters.
got the air. I thought the Ether Lord gets S3D1 and 1
Well,
random.
what about Power of the Spheres? Why are the Northern Stars?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, power, of course. Sorry. I put up Light of the Northern Star.
It must be
So, of
why
course.
the Northern Stars. He
Yeah,
doesn't
of
have
course.
Speed because he only has Air 1.
You don't get gems. Gems in battle from somebody who die are gone. Regarding items, you can get some. There's a calculation on whether or not you get them. You don't get everything. And some items you cannot get. They remove the ability to get certain cursed items like the Slave Collar and the Bane Venom Charm, because there was a kind of exploitive trick where you could stuff a whole bunch of guys with Slave Collars and have his magic kill them, and they'd all end up mute. Not mute, feeble-minded forever.
Feeble-minded, yeah.
So,
Like a normal affliction, you can't cure it because the item that causes feeble-minded
is
on
cursed.
them, and you can't use it.
Exactly. So this kind of just carries on as a fair bit of a slaughter. And that was roughly the end of the game. But definitely in hindsight, yeah, that's the king of Banefires. So I think I was hoping he would Banefire like crazy. It looks like the Soul Vortex didn't do me any damage because
If it had some Banefires, that would do the decay too, wouldn't it?
It would, but that's awfully far away. You know, he's way back here. I don't think Banefire would get that far.
It's pretty decent range. Let me check.
Yeah. But the Firestorm did, and if you we'll look at the follow-up. Oh, so I think he Phoenix fired somebody, and that guy just blew up right in the middle of his own stuff. Yes, Advanced Cast Spells is pretty good. It's a lot better than I thought.
Because, especially in a large battle like this where you have plenty of troops in front.
Yeah.
Because when they advance, they can cast the stronger, shorter range spells.
That's right.
The other one can't. So
yeah.
Sometimes useful.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is now interesting thing. I've always been a little skeptical of the Ether Warriors, but they're the last thing standing.
Well, they're pretty tough.
Mm-hmm.
And they have blades, so against certain
opponents, they're just so expensive. Let's see if this guy's blind.
Yeah, they're pretty decently priced in the base game, or in the base game, NDE. They're like 50% too expensive in the base game.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, all Astral summons are overpriced because the prices haven't changed since back when Clams of Pearls were permanent.
Advance and Cast does not work with scripted spells. What you can do is you can script the attack order for a single turn, and then they'll run forward to try and attack somebody, and then you can switch back to spells. But if the mage gets into melee range to attack someone, then they will not go back to casting spells again, which is pretty problematic.
And that's bad. The other thing is when you use the advance order, you're not casting that one script, one round. I normally...
Yeah, it can... You use attack sometimes because what people will do is, let's say that they're attacking into you with a super combatant or somebody like that. Then you would want to run forward because if they're hiding in the corner, you might not be able to hit them with certain spells that would kill them.
Yep. A limit to scripts?
Scripts are limited to 5 spells, and that's the
5?
main one. Sometimes you will use more gems than you might think to cast spells earlier in the script, and that will prevent later spell casts from going off.
Yeah.
That's usually because of fatigue issues.
You can script 5 things for a commander. That's it. And then after that, it does its own thing, depending on what your final order is. But that's your maximum is 5. So this guy's maxed
after
out.
100 fatigue, you are asleep.
Yeah, you can't do anything.
The spellcasting AI does not like to go over 100 fatigue, so they will usually try to spend extra gems if possible to reduce large fatigue from happening.
So an interesting thing here is the Firestorm did almost all the killing. That one Inca got almost all the kills.
Yes, because he didn't put up resistance to fire.
No resistance
She
whatsoever.
honestly should have by this point.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Especially in
we could probably see that on the Hall of Fame. There he is. 1,272 kills. So that guy killed almost everything.
Fatigue passively goes down by 1 for everyone, every round of combat. And it goes down by 5 instead of 1 whenever you are fatigued out.
I'm going to wrap. We're just going over we went a little over the 2 hours, but it's nice to have finished this review of this game, and nice to just get it kind of done in one tight session. Thanks, Ruffsy. Thanks, Trunky, and the other folks. I'm not sure who's still viewing. Some people have come and gone, but this will be up for viewing on Twitch for a couple of weeks. And then it will move over to YouTube once I do a little bit of editing. Nothing too major. I'll probably just do a little audio cleanup and give it a title page. So thanks again, Ruffsy.
No problem.
And I'll be back tomorrow. I've decided to do this the 2 hours every day during the week. I'm not sure what the topic will be tomorrow. It a little bit depends on who shows. All right. Take care, everybody.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Do you mind looking at a little bell that I had going? I finally got to use my big army in one of my games.
Online? Or tomorrow?
Just showing it in chat real quick.
Yeah, I'll log off first because I can't stream it anyways. So I'll have a look here. I have to answer a phone call here soon too. So I'll see you in the chat there, Rosie.